Hello, everybody. How you doing? How you doing? A little different from how we do things on the channel usually. I am taking my turn today and hosting the Barreled Up podcast with Odyssey, and the co-host is here. Jim, how we doing, my friend?
I'm good. I have switched allegiances. I'm like everybody else. I'm jumping ship and I'm heading to LA, baby. Let's go, Tinseltown, Hollywood.
I didn't even notice the hat.
I switched on you.
You had a Blue Jays hat on. I didn't even see you switch it. That's hilarious.
Yep, that's what you got to do. You think it's going this way, and then next thing you know, boom, the big reveal.
I love it. But how are we feeling? Big night last night. I mean, we all know what's going on here. In case any of you are living under a rock and you're just waking up and seeing all the news, Yoshinobu Yamamoto is officially an LA Dodger. And Jim, immediate reaction. What do you think?
I mean, they're building a super rotation. They're in the process of a super team, a super rotation. This is a squad that has mastered the 162. They can win during the regular season. It's the postseason that they need to be prepared for, and that's what they're building now. They're building a postseason juggernaut. All of the jokes about how they can win the West and they can, win the division and be great in the regular season, but then choke in the playoffs. This is what happens. This is what happens when a World Series or bust team keeps busting. They have to find a way to get better, and this is how they get better. We're seeing how teams like the Royals and the Tigers and the Reds and the Diamondbacks, we're seeing how they get better, and it's good. You go out and you get multiple players that improve the club. Well, when a team like the Dodgers needs to go out and get multiple players that improve the club, it's of the caliber of Shohei Ohtani, Tyler Glasnow, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and maybe more. I mean, again, it's a great get for the Dodgers. I feel bad for everybody else in the National League West. I'm glad the Blue Jays, I'm glad these guys don't play over there because that's going to be one hell of a division. How about you?
Yeah, man, it's the immediate reaction for me last night was, well, we were talking off recording here, and I was going to bed. I was crawling into bed. I was going to snuggle up with my pillow, and then all of a sudden, Jack Curry tweets out, "There's Yamamoto going to the Dodgers," and then I'm thinking, like, wait a minute, hold on a second. This isn't Jeff Passan here. Mm-hmm. What do I do here? Mm-hmm. I mean, do I wait a second? Do I buy fully into this? Because he's not someone that's really broken all, like Jeff Passan has broken stories. So, but then once we saw all the other stuff coming out, I'm like, okay, yep, this is happening now. But, were we really surprised, really, at the end of the day? Because, I mean, just go back to Ohtani himself, right? All the deferments. It's almost like they basically told us at that point they were going to be getting Yamamoto. And then we had all the football game stuff coming out. Yeah. And he was supposed to be on the list, and that wasn't false. Like, that was not a false story. He was on the list at one point. Ohtani was at the game. And so that's when you kind of started thinking, okay, there might be something to this here. But we saw, the Heyman tweets. Nope, don't buy it. Nothing there. But there was something there. It is what it is at the end of the day. The Dodgers, they look fantastic. But as we all know, you got to win on the field. We'll dive into that here. But everyone, if you can, hit the like button. We are live here on YouTube. And if you are listening to wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, make sure you have the downloads turned on. If you are just finding us for the first time, definitely give us the downloads, right? And if you can, give a 5-star reaction. If you like our faces enough, give us the 5 stars. We would greatly appreciate that. You can find this anywhere you find your favorite podcast: Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, wherever it may be. But let's dive into it here. Let's dive in. We got Yamamoto and the Dodgers now. I think we can both agree this makes them the favorites, right, in this division. Mm-hmm. I think we can all agree on that. I think the question is, how much are they going to win this division by? Are the Padres even going to come, or the Giants? Are they even going to come close? Or the Diamondbacks? Are they even going to come close to the Dodgers in this division? What are you thinking?
No, I don't think so. No. Look, they have to play the games, but this team is clearly far and away better. The the Giants are having a terrible time landing a star, and that's trouble. You've got a you got a Padres team that is now in this financial uncertainty, a Diamondbacks team, which give me the Diamondbacks for number 2 in the division. I think that there's your wild card team. There's a number 2 team. The Rockies, we got to feel the worst for here. They're not even in the equation, but
they're just hanging out.
It's almost like when you were in the American League these last couple of years. If you were a player, you were having a great season. Ohtani was going to be the MVP. Who's number 2? Okay, we know who number 1 is. We know who the MVP is. That's going to be Ohtani unless you break some record. So who's number 2? Who's the second best? And that's kind of how we'll look at the National League West now. Who's second best? Because the Dodgers, if they don't win the division, then it'll be a massive upset. I mean, the only way is if they get just riddled with injuries at this point, or Yamamoto is a massive bust, but nobody thinks he's going to be a bust.
No.
Kodai Senga made a fine transition from the NPB to Major League Baseball last year. The mound, the ball did not have any impact. And obviously scouts believe that it's not going to impact Yamamoto either. And Yamamoto has grades out and is a better pitcher. So it's the Dodgers. And again, it's not even about it. The National League West, they figured out how to do that. They're winning that thing in their sleep. It's about the postseason.
It is about the postseason. And that's why they got this guy. And just in case if anyone is wondering, why is Yamamoto so good? Well, over in Japan, winning the Best Pitcher award, winning the MVP 3 years in a row, you could argue that he had a much better career than guys like Yu Darvish over there. Daisuke, go back. Yamamoto was dominant in Japan with the Buffaloes. And right now, he is projected for some pretty decent numbers on Fangraphs. Fangraphs, they tend to be a little more conservative with the numbers. And Jim, I'll run these by you, and I guess we can maybe go a little over-under here. So right now, they're projecting him for 29 starts, 184 innings. Sounds about right. He's been very durable. Yeah, only 25. Don't see really him having any problems with injuries at this point. But they're projecting an ERA of 3.97 with a FIP of 3.95. Would you go over, under on that? What do you think?
Gotta go under.
Yeah.
Over would be a massive disappointment. I'm going under that. I don't think I'm going like a full run under, but I think that if he's not pitching to an ERA in the mid to low 3s, it'll be a disappointment. What was Senga's stats last year? What is
Senga over?
Kodai Senga was Kodai Senga was a 2.98.
Yeah,
like that
3.63 FIP. Yeah,
that may be the bar. Like what Kodai Senga did last year is probably the bar for Yamamoto to come in underneath that.
Yeah, and again, like I said, with Fangraphs, they tend to be a bit more conservative with the numbers, and they're projecting him at a 3.4 Fangraph wins above replacement. So let's say you add maybe 1 to 1.5 on top of that. Very possible you could see a 5-win picture or a 5 Fangraph WAR picture, and that last year would have put him among the top pitchers in the game. Yeah. So I definitely agree with you. I think we're really going to see probably an ERA, with. And let's actually get into why he is so good. But I would imagine you're probably going to see an ERA mid-2s, maybe even lower than that, because you're getting a plus fastball, 60 grade on Fangraphs. Right now, they have the slider. Surprisingly enough, they have the slider at a 45 right now, but they have it as a 55 for the future. So I'd probably put it in the middle. I'd even go a little more than that, honestly. His slider is pretty nasty. The cutter they have right now at a 45, but could be a little better down the road. You are seeing a very good curveball, a plus curveball from him. They're grading it at a 60. But the big thing with Yamamoto, and it almost feels like the splitter, forkball, whatever you want to say, it's like gaining steam the more you learn who Yamamoto is. Kind of like how Daisuke and this mysterious gyro ball was back in the day. But the splitter is really the bread and butter with Yamamoto. They grade it at a 70. All right. It's not very often, you'll see fastballs at 70s.
Well, that's Senga's splitter is a 70 out of 70.
Yeah. And that was very good last year. I would actually say Yamamoto's is maybe even a little bit better.
I think so too.
Yeah, and yeah, Senga's splitter is absolutely nasty, but with Yamamoto, got a little bit more juice on the velocity. It's I would probably put it a little bit better than that. So that's why I agree with you. I think we're going to see a much lower ERA than the 3.97. I'd say mid twos,
Yeah.
FIP probably around like a
Look at
mid 2.3. I could see something like
the
that.
command.
And the
Yamamoto's
command is an
command,
80.
80 out of an 80.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Again, Senga's 45 out of 45. So
Right.
what Kodai Senga did, add the command to it. That's you need to put it on top shelf. He's going to place it there nice and gently. You need it down low and away. He's going to bury it. He's going to dot you up with Yamamoto. It's special things are coming.
Right. And I was going to say, like, not often you see a 70 grade tool, but very rarely do you see an 80 grade tool. And for command, that basically means he can throw his pitches wherever he wants. He can throw them at any count. He can pinpoint anything he wants.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be very special. And the Dodgers, they got themselves just quite the rotation now. Like you said earlier, Yamamoto, Glasnow, Buehler coming back, Miller going into year 2. You have the back end right now with Sheehan, but Kershaw comes back mid-season, shoulders feeling good. I mean, hey, Clayton Kershaw is your number 5. That's not that bad if you ask me.
Super rotation.
Right. And, but I think it's still good that they have some of these younger guys like Sheehan there. You got Grove as well. Because with Glasnow, there are the injury risks at the end of the day. Buehler is coming back from injury, but I feel like he's going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
So, Miller going into year 2, will he make enough adjustments against the batters making adjustments against him for year 2? So either way, though, on paper, it looks very good.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see how this goes. But overall, the Dodgers right now, I mean, there's really, no matter who the Giants add, no matter what else the Diamondbacks might do, we'll talk about some remaining free agents here in just a little bit, but no matter what they do, I really don't see how it's going to matter all that much. So you might as well just give the Dodgers the division right now. But like you said, it comes down to the playoffs. So let's say Yamamoto ends up being that mid 2, maybe high 2 ERA kind of a guy. You're looking at Glasnow healthy at that point. Buehler. Do we keep Kershaw away from the playoffs at this point? But let's say you got Yamamoto, Glasnow, Buehler. How are you feeling about that in the postseason?
I mean, if they're healthy, that's going to be one of the best rotations that you're going to go up against. You think about who they're going to have to go through. This is why Atlanta needs to build. I mean, super rotations is kind of that. I'm obsessed with that right now. Building a super rotation, putting 5 guys out there that through the regular season they carry you, and then you pick the best 3 to carry you through the postseason. And if somebody goes down to injury, you've got another guy or 2 other guys that can step up. You saw, Arizona just didn't have enough good starting pitching. They had 2 guys that were carrying them. And Fotts stepped up, but that was great. You got to have a lights out rotation. Braves are trying to build one. They're a team that stands out. I know the Phillies have a good rotation, but I mean, we're looking at 1 through 5, where your 5 is somebody else's 2. Yeah. And that's what the Dodgers are trying to build. They're talking. There's been some chatter today, and I think it's an overreaction to what the Dodgers are doing. There's been Corbin Burns talk today, and I think everybody needs to just slow down and cool off. Go, throw some cold water in your face, because I can't see that happening at this point. Yeah, I believe
I don't see it.
It's Luke. If they do anything, it's Lucas Giolito. It's like it's a guy at the back of the rotation that they can give a shot to, and if he's terrible, so what? Move on, move him out. You don't need him. And you brought up some names, Grove and Stone and players like that. If you're gonna make a trade, if you're the Dodgers, don't take those assets and put it into 1 year of Corbin Burns. Take those assets and put it into 3 years of Randy Arozarena. That's what I do with that pitching, that now who knows if they're ever going to be a starter with the Dodgers because of the situation. I got to think that this rotation, this team is now set up to make it through October. I believe there is another bat to be had. That's why I bring up Randy Arozarena, because I do think one more bat needs to be brought in.
I agree.
And Randy would be perfect. It's not going to be Cody Bellinger. Teoscar Hernandez doesn't move the needle. It's not going to be Tommy Pham. I mean, maybe it would be Tommy Pham on a deal, but if they want to go, again, this is all about October. You're not getting Tommy Pham now for October. Tommy Pham helps you get through the regular season, and then if he's a boost in October, that's a bonus. I think you go out there, if you do anything, you make a splash and try to land Randy Arozarena. That's what I feel is the thing to do with your assets, because you do need another bat. Randy feels like he would be a good one.
Yeah, it's always possible they could circle back again, come up with another trade. I feel like his name was probably brought up in those talks with the Tyler Glasnow situation, and it probably just ended up not working out that way. But yeah, could you go back to the table, maybe make something else happen?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Here's my feeling on this, and tell me what you think. I think because we had heard the reports of, we heard the names in the Glasnow trade. Mm-hmm. We heard that days before the deal finally went through. So obviously they were there. They were close to the finish line. And then we started hearing Randy Arozarena chatter. And we had heard weeks before that even that Randy Arozarena could be had in a trade. So we start looking at this and we're like, okay, this is what I believe happened. This is a guess. But I think it's a pretty solid guess. It's on firm ground. They had the deal for Tyler Glasnow done. Andrew Friedman, or one of his generals, asks, well, what would it take to get Randy included in this trade? Opens up a whole new can of worms, starts muddying the waters. And they're like, you know what? Let's go back. We had a handshake on the Glasnow, Manny Margot, Pepio, DeLuca. We had a handshake on that. Let's get that done. We can revisit Randy after we get this thing done. We got to go focus on Yamamoto for a minute, but we'll be back. I think that Randy just it muddied the water. You had the Glasnow thing done, move on, revisit it later.
Yeah, it's, to me, I think his name had to have come up at some point.
Yeah.
Sorry, go.
No, I'm with you.
Sorry. I thought you were about to say something. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, like I think Arozarena would be a perfect fit for them if they can't really circle back. I would imagine, Teoscar Hernandez could be a guy. And one guy I would actually, maybe I'm being a little biased here, but I wonder if someone like Adam Duvall could come up for them, like a right-handed bat who you can kind of pair him with. You got Hayward out there. You got, a couple other lefty bats there. To me, I think Adam Duvall would make a lot of sense. Just a right-handed bat that can give you some pop, kind of platoon. He can go play all three of those outfield positions. He can go play, some center, with Outman, being a lefty bat. He can get the, the righty at bats against the lefties. So, Hayward, obviously, like I mentioned, I feel like Duvall would be a nice piece for them, or Hernandez. Yeah. I don't really see someone like a Jorge Soler because you're not really going to get great defense, whereas you'll get some good defense from someone like Duvall, or at least decent defense. Not amazing, but he can get the job done out there. I wonder if a name like Michael Taylor could come up, a guy that had some pop last year,
Take Michael Taylor out of Ross Atkins' mouth.
I know, please.
Please take Michael Taylor so the Blue Jays don't sign him.
But I almost feel like that could be a guy, right? Where I could see the Dodgers, they tend to really like the athletic kind of players. And I feel like Taylor, that could be a decent fit there. Again, that righty bat. So that's what I think the Dodgers need to do. I feel like if you're to nitpick on this team, I would look towards the bottom half of the lineup. They're going to have some of their other guys step up as well. I feel like there was a bit to be desired. Can Muncy maybe get the batting average up a little bit? Maybe that's slugging up a little bit. Can Outman take a step forward? Chris Taylor, we know Chris Taylor for his versatility, but can he get that bat going just a little bit more? Gavin Lux, what's going to happen with him? So I feel like you could get a little bit more in the bottom half of that lineup. So maybe a little bit of pop there, even if it's a, more of a platoon bat. I could see something like that. Bullpen, could they still go make a splash in free agency? I have a hard time thinking they're going to go after a starter. I think they're done there. But, and I don't know, like you said, there's the Corbin Burns talk out there. I don't see it, but Because don't forget, Dustin May, he had the flexor tendon surgery, out for a year. And I think he's due back around like August or so, September. So that's someone that could end up coming back, or do they maybe just hold him out like they did with Bueller instead of rushing him back? So we'll have to see on that. I think if there is anything they could do, if they wanted to make one more splash, maybe someone like Josh Hader. Do you think that's realistic?
I do. Yeah. There was a rumor that was leaked out there about it was shortly after the Ohtani signing that the Dodgers had approached Josh Hader. And there was also in the same week a report that Hader is expected to top the Diaz contract and be the richest contract in the history of baseball for a relief pitcher. The Dodgers' current payroll situation is they're $14 million away from the 300 number at the current standing. So if they're going to go get Hader, they may need to do something to, look, how far over 300 they want to go, I don't know. You've got, when we think about dollars that are coming off the book next year, Hayward's money's off the book. Joe Kelly's money will be off the books. Walker Bueller's money will be off the books, but they're going to need to replace Bueller. So I don't know how long they want to live over that $300 million payroll, but it feels like if there's a team that could do it, it would be the Dodgers, because the Mets aren't going to do it. I don't think the Yankees are going to spend that much money on Hader. Just trying to think about the teams that would go to that level for Josh Hader. And the Dodgers are the only one that stand out to me as they're assembling this super team. They're being ultra aggressive. The Rangers are now in a financial situation with their RSN that's probably going to the Rangers are going to have to choose between, do we get a starter or do we get a closer? And I think I would think you would go starter in that.
They need more innings.
Yeah, they need more innings. So it feels like there's a very real possibility that Hader could be added to the group. And that's kind of where, like you were talking about, grabbing Duvall, grabbing an outfielder, call it on the cheap, whether it be AAV or it's just duration. Duvall on a 1-year deal. Teoscar's not going to sign a 1-year deal, but Duvall might, if he wants to go try to win a World Series next year. Yeah. You may see. I do wonder if you will see players try to jump on with the Dodgers now that you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming, or wow, I thought that player could get a 2 or 3 year deal, or I thought that player could get more money, but they're going to the Dodgers because in the player fraternity, the Dodgers are viewed as the overwhelming World Series favorite, and who wouldn't want to go play with Ohtani and Yamamoto at this point?
It is a very desirable destination, and they just happen to have that, the sunny California weather out there. It's pretty nice.
Good weather,
if you ask me. But kind of sticking on here with the Yamamoto stuff, let's talk about the teams that did not get Yamamoto.
Please, let's do that.
We know. Well, actually, we don't really know anything about what was the Red Sox offer here. Did the Blue Jays make an offer? Like, what was the deal with the Giants? Like, because we saw that the report that they had dropped out.
Yep.
I had personally been told from a person that I trust that the Giants, or not the Giants, or who could be, maybe it was the Giants, that a team that had dropped out of the running had come back in and put in the highest bid.
Ooh.
And then after that, that's when the Giants dropped out. So I'm wondering if it was the Giants that did that.
There was, I had some Giants followers that told me that Farhan and guys that follow Giants beat reporters and the media much closer than I do, that it was out there that Farhan was going to give Yamamoto whatever he wanted. So it wouldn't surprise me.
That makes me think he was just dead set on LA from the very beginning.
Look at have you seen the video of MLB last night after the deal was announced? Showed a video of Yamamoto running up to Ohtani, tapping him on the shoulder, getting him to turn around, hugging him like a child hugging a parent after he hadn't seen him for a week because they'd been away on a business trip. You look at his face in that moment. How was he? He was never going anywhere else. The way Ohtani structured the contract, the focus that the Dodgers went to him, obviously Yamamoto's affection for Shohei Ohtani. He was never going anywhere else. It was everything. This was all a ruse to get the Dodgers to go to 325 plus a $50 million signing bonus. He was going to the Dodgers the whole time.
Yeah, I personally, in hindsight, I think that's really what it was.
Yes.
I think he listened with the Yankees, listened with the Mets. You know, he was hearing what they had to say. You know, Cohen really went that extra mile, you know, going to Japan, having dinner. But I had always said about the Mets, I always felt like there was a limit for how far they were going to go. And I pushed back on those Mets fans. I said, no, this is Cohen. You know, this guy's going to just throw bags of money down on the table right in front of him during that dinner. I always pushed back against that. And I said this last night on the show, don't forget, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but don't forget he hired David Stearns. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but the guy's a nerd. And I mean that in a good way. Sorry. In my opinion, you're not bringing in a nerd to just keep blowing through all the money you got, right? You bring that guy in just like when John Henry of my Red Sox bringing in Chaim Bloom. You had Dave Dombrowski, who's going to be arguably the greatest executive ever with how many World Series he's won, you know, all the players and trades that he's brought in. You had that guy and you got rid of him to bring in Chaim Bloom to help you reset that payroll, you know, to get that farm system going.
Yeah.
That's David Stearns. Like, that is literally Chaim Bloom is not David Stearns, but that's the same type of mold. And Cohen, as soon as I saw that that's the guy they brought in, and once you saw all this stuff like, oh, Cohen's going to come up with a huge offer, I never bought it. I thought they would have a strong offer, but I never saw them going crazy, right? They would go as far as they could, but they're going to tap out at some point. I didn't know if they were going to be the winner, but I didn't think they were going to go crazy. Like,
they didn't get a chance to tap out though. Like the
word is,
the reporting is that Yamamoto told the teams that he wanted to be at 300. The Mets said they would go to 325. This is all reporting that Yamamoto then went back to the Dodgers and asked if they would go to 325. They went to 325 plus another 50 for the signing bonus. And they never went. And then Yamamoto's camp never went back to the Mets to see if the Mets would beat that. We don't know if they would or would not have.
I think from where I'm coming from, I think I'm more looking at that 325 and thinking, all right, well, if Cohen has all this money, why didn't he just throw down 350?
Well, because again, if you think about it, if Cohen believes that 300 is what you're asking for, like if he comes to you, Yamamoto's agent, if Joe Wolf comes to you and says you got to be at 300, right? It's a strong play by Steve Cohen to say we'll go 325. Like that's a strong play. And then Yamamoto and his camp and Joe Wolf, they say, okay, great, thanks. We got to circle back with the other teams and we'll see if anyone else is playing ball. And they circle back to the other teams and they go to the Dodgers and they tell the Dodgers, here's where the Mets are at. The Dodgers come back with their offer. And then there is no communication back with the Mets from that point on, which is, we don't know. We don't know. Steve Cohen may have said, all right, we're done. At the end of the day, I feel like Steve Cohen's driving the ship. If Steve Cohen wants a player, he's going to get a player no matter what David Stern says. Right. I mean, the thing about Boston, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, it was ownership also. It was not only the general manager, it was not only Chaim Bloom, it was the ownership's directive. Yeah. We got all these salaries, it's out of control. We need to make changes. David Price has got to go. Things have to change. We have too much money. So I felt like that was top down. Here with the Mets, Steve Cohen wants a guy, he's going to go get him. And David Stearns might be like, well, he doesn't really fit. And Steve Cohen's going to be like, quiet you, go sit in the corner. I want this guy.
Well, I just haven't like, I see that. I think that could happen in special situations, right? This is a special situation, of course.
Yes.
But I wouldn't see that being like all the time. I wouldn't see that happening. I think Stearns is a highly respected guy.
Yep.
I am curious to think, was Stearns there, telling him like this might be getting a little much,
He's
right? Like
poking him on the shoulder. He's like, Steve, it's too much, Steve, it's too much. Quiet.
Yeah. I'd love to hear that story at some point.
Me too.
I'd like to hear how far were they willing to go? Because reports are, like you said, they didn't really get another chance. All right. So who knows? Will we find out one day if maybe they were willing to go 350, even crazier? Well, I don't know.
Right.
We'll have to wait and see. But let's get into some of these other teams. Well, let's stay on the Mets here real quick.
Sure.
With the Mets, they got really, they got the short end of the stick here, right? It seemed like they were perhaps used for leverage, but now they got to focus on their own season. So if you're to give like a quick thing here, what do you think the Mets need to do? What do you think they go make a splash elsewhere, or do you think they kind of stay on that track to what they were looking at 2025 being that year where they really want to go all in? Do you think they make some small moves, or maybe we see a splash?
Everything we're hearing, at least immediately after during this fallout period, is that there won't be a splash. That the Blake Snell, the Jordan Montgomery thing is not a possibility at this point. That could certainly change, but in this fallout period, it sounds like they're not going to make that knee-jerk splash move. Maybe they go after Imanaga. Maybe they go after some other. I mean, I still think they need another pitcher. I kind of wonder if this turns into a situation where they rethink things with Pete Alonso. Look, we're at a point. I have a video coming out probably tomorrow. I don't think I'm going to premiere it tonight, but it's all done. It is ready to go. I think I'm going to premiere it tomorrow, where I'm proposing a Mets trade and I'm proposing a Pete Alonso trade. I still think it's a 1% chance, but if you are the Mets, here's the rationale behind it. If 2024 is going to be a year that you are not in World Series or bust mode, you are in let's just try to be competitive mode. Our World Series teams are 2025, 2026. What the hell's Pete Alonso doing on your team then? If you can turn Pete Alonso into prospects, I think you do it. And I still think that it's, again, 99% that he stays with us. You either extend him or you trade him. There is no point in having Pete Alonso in a lame duck year sitting on your roster because, again, if you're not going for it, what's the point? Turn him into prospects and then do what you'll have to do anyway. Bid for him in the open market. But you'll be bidding for him and you'll have 3 prospects maybe in return. I don't know if this forces them to move Pete Alonso, but it did planted the seed back in my mind that without Yamamoto, if they're not going to make any big moves now, if they don't extend Pete, what the hell's he doing on the team? Trade him.
I agree with you, actually. I think that's actually the best move if the right deal comes up.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, the Mets, we've seen the 2025 thing, but they still have good players on this team. So I don't see why they couldn't go out there and try to compete for a wild card. I mean, it's not like they're just dumping the season. Like, you still have good players on this team. You have an ace in Kadai Senga. You have Francisco Lindor, right? There's good players. Now, taking Pete Alonso off wouldn't help you. But could they possibly still be perhaps competitive even without Pete Alonso? That's losing a lot of power, a lot of run production. But I could see if the right deal comes along where before the season starts, where maybe they could get someone that's under control, maybe get a pitcher. They definitely could use some more pitching in this system if if the right opportunity came along. I could see him doing it. We'll have to see. Or could it just be they hang on to him, maybe deadline? That's what we kind of look at, where like we saw his name pop up at the deadline last year. Yeah. So I think eventually, I think in my opinion, I think you should try to take advantage of that value. And the sooner the better.
That value is only going to go down. Right now on baseball trade values, his value is actually kind of low. I argue that he might be one of the guys that are undervalued.
Mhm.
but it's a rental player. So
Yeah.
you deal him now, you can maybe get 3 prospects. If you wait to deal him in July, you might
Mhm.
get 1 or 2, and who knows what the caliber of a 2 prospect package would be.
Yeah, I think he's
I think
around. I think he's around like a $10 million value on there, 11 million or
11
so.
and I think it's 11 and a half. Because I just ran that trade. Listen, I built a trade with the Blue Jays where the Blue Jays sent 3. I already put it on Twitter, and Mets fans hate it. Understandably so. I didn't expect anything
Of course,
less.
I hate it.
Yeah, the funny thing is though, some Mets fans are countering, throw Bo Bichette in and then we can talk, which is just nonsense. So but if you could turn Pete Alonso into 2 pitching prospects, a guy that the Blue Jays drafted in the first round in 2022, a guy that they drafted in one of the high rounds, I think it was also 22, and a high pedigree college bat that projects to do pretty decently.
Mhm.
Wouldn't you take 3 prospects? I believe that was a 4 and 8 and a 9. No, 4, 9, and 13 in the Blue Jays organization for Pete Alonso. And I don't know. I kind of if it's for a rental, if I'm the Mets and Pete's gonna be a free agent, if I can't extend him, I got to get something. I don't know how many good offers are going to come back. Yes, Isaiah, Vlad would be your designated hitter. Pete would be your first baseman. That's how they would run that.
Yeah.
The Blue Jays need to try to do something impossible. And trading for Pete Alonso feels like an impossible task. But of all of the impossible tasks at this moment today, December 22nd, it feels like the most the least impossible of all of the impossible things that they need to do.
Yeah, there definitely could be a fit there. They could use another bat. That they didn't have one player last year with over a 500 slugging, so that could definitely
Nope.
be something. Let's talk about the other
Do it.
perceived finalist in New York, and
Mm,
let's talk about the New York Yankees. It
yeah.
seemed like the Yankees at one point were it had the inside track, right? We had seen I believe is it Ty Schmidt from the Pat McAfee show? He had put something out about like a
Oh yeah,
9 year
9 for 326.
326 and we're like, "What?" It was I didn't buy it at first, but it gave me pause
Yeah.
because I'm thinking like, I mean, they have that show on ESPN now. I mean, they've had conversation with Jeff Passan. Uh, so
Sean
like, I'm
Casey.
thinking like, could there be something there? I don't know. Like, I didn't know what to think about that one, but I also knew he tends to be, more on the comedic side of
Mm-hmm.
things. I believe he's a Yankee fan as well. I felt like he was just trying to have some fun a little bit, but it was just like, I don't know. Like, I didn't know
Yeah.
what to think about it. I took a step back at first, and then I saw Michael Marino. He had come out and said, like, no, he loves the show, but don't bank on this. And he ended up being right. So in the end, the Yankees, they actually had, it looks like the third highest bid. They stopped at 300 million, according to
Mm-hmm.
the reports, while the Dodgers and the Mets were at 325. So the Yankees, according to the reports, they felt like that was a healthy offer. They thought that
Mm-hmm.
was a fair offer, but in the end, wasn't enough. And I said the same thing about the Yankees, right? Mets, Yankees, they had one thing in common: high payrolls. And I saw there was going to be, I mean, again, who knows with the Mets, would they have even gone higher? But I did feel like with the Yankees, especially how Steinbrenner has operated, he's not Steve Cohen. I saw the Yankees tapping out if it got crazy. So, but I thought a
Yeah.
strong offer would come from them, but I definitely saw them giving up at some point if it got too high. So for the Yankees right now, I mean, listen, they didn't get Yamamoto, but they got something they really needed, and that was Juan Soto. Let's see if he ends up staying there long term. But right now, when you look at the Yankees rotation, it's Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon, Clark Schmidt, Nestor Cortez, and right now Fangraphs is penciling in Clayton Beeter as the number 5. So what do you think about the Yankees rotation right now? It's sure it would have looked a lot better with Yamamoto there, but what are you thinking about the Yankees rotation right now? What are you thinking when it comes to just them as a team?
This is a Shane Bieber trade waiting to happen. Like
Mm.
I don't think they're going to pull together the pieces for Corbin Burns, and I don't think that's going to happen. Dylan Cease, the asking price is too high. What other starting pitchers? Maybe a Jesus Luzardo situation. I did float a trade possibility out there for that, and it does work if the Yankees take on Avisel Garcia's contract. And I know you're saying, well, wait, Jim, they just brought in Trent Grisham. Well, you sent Trent Grisham to Miami as well. You sort of swap Grisham and Garcia. Yankees have to add 2 prospects into the deal. It has to be Everson Pereira, and I'm trying to think who the other. I believe I had a pitcher added into the mix as well. The Yankees could pull off the Jesus Luzardo trade, but the real easy trade, you could probably find a 1-for-1 trade, is with Cleveland for Shane Bieber, and you're bringing him in there. Shane Bieber 1 year, stick him in the middle of that rotation, so you've got you've got Cole. You're banking on a Rodon bounce back. You have Bieber in there at the number 3. That's a high upside 3, and Schmidt and Cortez. Like something has to be done. Beater doesn't get the job done. Carlos Rodon at the number 2 spot, and then a healthy gap between the skill level between that and where the number 3 starter is. They need somebody that has a higher floor, a much higher floor, and I think Shane Bieber's the way to go. I think Burns is going to cost too much. Those Zardo trades, that's going to be pricey too. I think you can get Shane Bieber. That feels like the way to go, because I don't see the answer on the free agent market. Do you? I don't. I think it's got to be a trade.
The only one I could see, and it's more because I'm thinking of the pitching coach, Matt Blake. I'm thinking, could they see some intrigue in Giolito a little bit?
Oh, the fan base would be so mad.
But ERA, definitely skyrocketed when after he got traded, when he went to the Angels and then the Guardians at the end of the season. He had a rough second half, but he was pretty solid in the first half. But the one thing with him is, he's going to give you innings. That's the one thing you can count on with him. Will they be good innings? I don't know. But Matt Blake, he's all about the analytics.
Yep.
He's all about, using the technology. I wonder if that could be something where they see Giolito as a guy where, like, hey, you know what? There is still a good pitcher here. Can we maybe find something with him? Get like a 1-year deal, 2-year deal to kind of reestablish the market a little bit. I wonder if they take a chance. It might be a decent sized contract for 1 year. We've even heard like $20 million for Lucas Giolito for 1 year, which sounds kind of crazy considering how bad he was with the Angels and the Guardians. That's the only free agent I could maybe see. I mean, if I'm looking at some of these other ones, could Marcus Stroman finally live out his dream and become a New York Yankee? My goodness. Could you see like someone like Sean Manaea on like a cheap deal, like a Michael Lorenzen,
Hyunjin Ryu.
Paxton? Could we have a reunion? Maybe
Ryu. It's Hyunjin Ryu. That's the guy.
Would be interesting. I could see them doing that, like a 1-year deal for a guy. Nothing crazy, but someone that you get some upside out of him. But yeah, I could see like a Shane Bieber trade. That could be something. I think really, though, at the end of the day, what they're really going to try and count on is getting Rodon back on track, getting Cortez back on track. That's what I think. I think, Rodon had just a bust of a year last year, but they got a lot of money invested in this guy. They need to really do something with him. Let's see if he can be healthy, right? He had a bad start with health-wise last year. So that's what I honestly think. I think they're really thinking like, all right, instead of going out there and trying to put Band-Aids, we need to kind of really focus on our own players too. So again, I could see like a 1-year deal, or like Bieber, like he won't cost much to get.
He really shouldn't. Bieber should be easy to get.
No, Bieber is not a lot, and people think it would be expensive. No, he won't cost a lot. He will not even cost you anywhere near a top 100 prospect, in my opinion.
Right, that's it. I mean, Shane Bieber literally, like, just I'll pull up the prospects. We'll mess around with the prospects here. Yankee fans, would you trade? I mean, would you do Bieber for Bieber? Would you do? I mean, Luis Gil's way too far off the radar at this point, but like, we're talking about guys I believe the Yankees could give up for Shane Bieber that would be inconsequential to the 2024 season, the 2025 season. Whoever you give up for Bieber, you will not miss. You could probably package prospects that failed to launch, going back to 2021 when we were looking at Luis Heel, maybe even Oswaldo gets, Estevan Florial. Just get the whole group together of prospects that failed to launch, send them to Cleveland. That's it. It's the Luis Heel, Davy Garcia, and Estevan Florial trio headed to Cleveland for Shane Bieber. Done.
Sounds dandy to me. Sounds pretty good to me. But here's what we're going to do. We're at the 45-minute mark, and we got a couple more things to talk about. So if you are live with us, don't worry. Stay here. Everything is good. But for the replay viewers, we're going to put the rest of this on to the podcast format. So you can listen to that Spotify, Google, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Again, just a reminder for everyone, if you can, hit the downloads for us. Make sure those are turned on. If you like our faces enough, please leave us a 5-star review if you think we're doing a good job, of course. But for those of you that are watching the replay, goodbye for now. And you can catch the rest of this in podcast format.